We have a pretty humble title for the speech. I think it's something like Saskatchewan, there's no place like it. Not very self-effacing, unless you remember that when we say that in Saskatchewan, yeah, we're talking about the economy, because really we don't think there's a place like it with respect to our economic prospects for the future, but we're also talking about minus 40 degrees Celsius plus a wind chill. There's no place like that either, at least precious few of them. But we're very, very grateful to the Chamber for this chance to share with you a little bit about what's happening in the province, what's been happening over the last year since we were last here, and also to share with you some thoughts on the future prospects for our country and the province in a world that is where there's obviously some economic instability, but also some great opportunity. You may have reflected on the very kind introduction of the High Commissioner thusly. You may have thought, well, yeah, that's all very good. They've been able to do all of those things, and they're a leader economically, but Saskatchewan is a resource-based economy, a commodity-driven economy, and what flows then in those economies will one day ebb. And you may be wondering to yourself, how long will that last? Is there a plan for the ebbing, for example? What about the future? Well, consider this. Consider that in this world, the fastest growing economies prize two things more than anything else: food security and energy security. When you consider that prospect, and you consider what I'm about to share in terms of what we have to offer in Saskatchewan, I hope you will agree that our chances to keep this thing going for the mid and the long term are pretty good. Just a few short weeks ago, the United Nations Panel on Global Sustainability released a report. It said the world's population is set to grow to nearly 9 billion people by 2040. There will be more middle-class consumers. The number of middle-class consumers, according to this study, will increase by 3 billion over the next 2 decades. That growing middle class will want the comforts of the middle class. They will want a better diet. They'll want a more protein-intensive diet. By 2030, the report said we'll need at least 50% more food for the planet and 40% more energy. In that world, I like our chances in Saskatchewan. I like Canada's chances in that world. Let me share with you a little bit about what we have to offer to a world that wants food security. Our borders encompass almost half of all of the arable acres in Canada, just in the province of Saskatchewan. About 260,000 square kilometers, an area bigger than all of the United Kingdom, available for and used in farming. 61% of the lentils exported in the world were grown in our province. Not in Canada, just in Saskatchewan. 57% of the dried peas exported around the world came from the province of Saskatchewan. 34% of the world's durum wheat comes from the province of Saskatchewan. 34% of the world's canola seed exports comes from the province of Saskatchewan. 26% of the world's canola oil comes from Saskatchewan. 24% of the world's mustard seed comes from Saskatchewan. 22% ends up on my tie, it seems, but and 53% of the known potash reserves on Earth are in this rectangular-shaped place called Saskatchewan. Difficult to pronounce, but easy to draw. When it comes to food security, when it comes to opportunities in our province, again, I like our chances to continue to grow on the strength of this agricultural base. We're not, though, stopping at a focus on primary production. Our vision in the province is that we need to build for the next economy. We need to build for the ebb, and we need to build on the platform of what we're good at right now, and that means focused on agricultural and food innovation. Since 1971, the Crop Development Center at the University of Saskatchewan has released 51 new varieties of wheat, 300 varieties of other crops. And we are trying to reanimate Saskatchewan's dominance in terms of wheat science. We've just announced another $10 million to assist in further research into new varieties of wheat. Wheat, of course, grows well in drought conditions. Wheat is also less expensive to grow because it uses fertilizer more efficaciously. And wheat can withstand even more crop diseases. It's sort of been forgotten, though, actually, in terms of science. And we want, together with companies, we're going to be partnering with companies to renew a focus on wheat research. We've campaigned in the fall and are now implementing a commitment that we made to build at the University of Saskatchewan the Global Food Security Institute. We'll take some of the royalties that we generate and in the mid and the long term use that to fund the Global Food Security Institute, because our vision for this institution is robust. We want to be world leaders when it comes to new crop science, when it comes to plant technology, plant biotechnology. We want to be world leaders in research into food, transportation, and storage. In India, in any given year, up to 44% of the food they grow is completely lost because of a lack of storage capacity and a lack of transportation technology. There is a philanthropic and a commercial motive for our province to be building this Food Security Institute, to be pioneering new science there, to be building the next economy, and to be doing it in partnership with the private sector, with chemical companies, with fertilizer companies, with those who are engaged in agriculture, and that's exactly what we're going to do. What about energy? Here again, we're blessed providentially with a great resource that no government ought to take credit for, and I do not now do so. We are the second largest producer of oil in Canada. It's all conventional. We've got about 10,000 square kilometers available potentially for oil sands development, but it's simply not economically viable at this time in terms of the geology for its commercial development. So we have conventional oil. In southeast Saskatchewan, there's something called the back-end play. We share it with Montana and North Dakota and Manitoba. We're trying through horizontal drilling to take it from Manitoba. They get equalization payments, they're okay. That particular formation, by the way, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, is now the largest conventional play in North America ahead of Prudhoe Bay. And we've got it, we're blessed, we have a big chunk of that, and it helps make us such a prolific exporter of oil. In terms of our American friends, we sell them more oil than the country of Kuwait. 45.6 billion barrels of conventional oil in play, and we're third behind British Columbia in terms of natural gas production as well. And then there's uranium. Saskatchewan produces in any given year between 20 and 26% of the world's uranium. Last month, the Government of Canada signed an agreement that will allow China to buy Saskatchewan uranium directly. And let me just say how grateful we are to the Prime Minister, who has taken this issue on personally, who actually negotiated the agreement personally with leadership in China and was able to announce this deal. It could mean $3 billion worth of sales for Cameco. That's the Saskatoon uranium mining-based company that we're so proud of. Why is China so interested in our uranium and uranium from around the world? Well, the World Nuclear Association website says China has 14 operating nuclear reactors, 25 currently under construction, and more on the drawing board. The association predicts a 6-fold increase in Chinese nuclear capacity by 2050. China is rapidly becoming self-sufficient in reactor design and construction, but not fuel, not nuclear fuel. So this is a huge opportunity for us in our province. We need to make some adjustments to something called NROP so we can welcome other companies to invest in uranium in our province, but certainly we're making that case around the world, that there's a huge opportunity in northern Saskatchewan where you will not find a richer grade of ore anywhere else in the world, or of yellowcake anywhere else in the world in terms of uranium opportunity. India is also expanding its nuclear program, as you know. We were there at the time of the terrible tragedy in Japan. We were in India and asked the question even then to officials, and they just said, we simply can't afford to build more coal all the time. We have to continue, and will continue with our nuclear program. A few short days ago, the Nuclear Power Corporation of India announced plans to set up an additional 20 reactors across their country. The Deputy Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency has lauded the move, as well as India's long-standing and continuing research into new kinds of fuel for nuclear reactors. Uranium and nuclear technology offer tremendous potential for developing the new economy in our province, for building that innovation agenda. We have a proud tradition in nuclear innovation, by the way. In November of 1951, scientists in our province tested the world's first cobalt-60 radiation treatment machine for cancer. Prior to that breakthrough, the survival rate for women with cervical cancer was 25%. After that breakthrough, it grew almost immediately to 75%. Nuclear medicine is part of the cycle. It's part of the opportunity. To build on this proud tradition, our government has recently invested $30 million in something called the Centre for Research into Nuclear Medicine and Material Science at the University of Saskatchewan. It's the first step on the road whose ultimate destination is regaining leadership we once held and excellency we once held in this field of research, in looking at the full uranium cycle, and looking at new technologies for recycling fuel, nuclear medicine, other material science that will include a cyclotron at the University of Saskatchewan, and more investment at our synchrotron that already exists there, the production of medical isotopes, not from a reactor, but from the investment we're prepared to make at the synchrotron. And importantly, our plan for nuclear research and science includes a leadership we wish to claim in small reactor development. I think you're going to hear some announcements here in the next while about companies. We already have Hitachi as a partner at the center. You're going to hear more about companies wanting to partner on the potential for developing small reactor technology. Remote distributed power is of greater interest today than it was. The stability that comes with smaller, more remote reactors is of greater interest than it once was. And we who produce all this uranium want to add a little value to it. And we want to be part of the cycle leading in that research. It's part of our innovation agenda. In terms of energy innovation, I also need to share this with you. We're working hard in the province of Saskatchewan to be a leader in carbon capture sequestration. Here again, we're quite fortunate. Estevan, which is a city in southeast Saskatchewan, is home to a generating station called Boundary Dam. And it is home of the world's first and largest integrated carbon capture and storage demonstration project, Clean Coal Project. It's not an oxymoron. It's a $1.24 billion project that the government, through its utility, is funding, although we have private partners on the technology. It will retrofit this existing coal-fired generating station with state-of-the-art steam turbines, the first in the world designed for a coal-fired plant. The end result will be 100 megawatts of clean baseload electricity generated from coal. The end result will be 1 million tons of CO2 captured every single year before it gets into the air. That's the equivalent of taking about 250,000 vehicles off the road. And the end result will also be the use of that CO2 before it's stored permanently for enhanced oil recovery. So we don't have to drill more holes in the earth, but rather we can reanimate previously thought assets that were previously thought to be mature in the oil sector. Just about 100 kilometers away from that particular project, by the way, is the world's largest CO2 storage project in Saskatchewan. We take CO2 from a coal gasification plant in Beulah, North Dakota. This project is supported by the U.S. Department of Energy and companies in our government and our federal government. We take that CO2 across the border into southeast Saskatchewan, where we first use it to enhance oil recovery. We don't, the oil companies do. And by the way, the results are in. The work has increased oil production in just one field between 16,000 and 28,000 barrels per day. Again, without drilling any more holes. You think about the environmental sustainability of that, but rather increasing what's already there. And then the CO2 is stored. And it is stored effectively. The International Energy Agency monitors the storage. It is stored efficaciously and in a stable way, and it is part of the solution, part of the answer in terms of CO2 mitigation for us and for many other parts of the world. And other parts of the world, by the way, are not running away from coal, and so they're very interested in the opportunities for clean coal technology and for other means that we can take to make energy production more sustainable. When it comes to energy innovation, when it comes to a world that wants energy security in a more delivered in a more sustainable way, again, I like our chances in Canada. I like our chances for the province of Saskatchewan. We actually have, in our country, an excellent record in investing public dollars, in companies investing their dollars to try to make energy production more sustainable, more environmentally responsible. But you wouldn't know it from the headlines. You wouldn't know it from the news that we've just heard coming out of the EU. Although that vote didn't go the way we were hoping, it went the way we were hoping it would go, at least for the interim. You wouldn't know it for the news coming out of the United States around the Keystone Pipeline. And you know, Your Excellency, we in our country need to do a much, much better job of getting out our message on this, of presenting our record to the world in terms of CO2 mitigation, in terms of steps we've taken to improve the extraction of oil from an environmental context. We need to get out information as it appeared very recently in the respected scientific journal Nature, which this month states that the development of oil sands, well, maybe we have a bit more credibility in Saskatchewan on the oil sands issue because we don't have a dog in that hunt yet. We don't have any oil sands. The Nature journal says, in this month, states the development of the oil sands will have less of an impact on our global climate than conventional petroleum sources. The Jacobs Consultancy did a lifestyle comparison of North American crude that comes from steam-assisted gravity oil sands. California heavy oil, Nigerian crude, both of them generate a higher CO2 footprint than, say, the oil from Northern Alberta. And so it's interesting to hear from scientists like Robert Redford and Daryl Hanna, who refuse to respond to these inconvenient truths. Is there more we need to do in our country? Yes. We have to do a better job, both from a habitat perspective and from a CO2 perspective. But what other oil exporting country in the world is spending more per capita than us? Venezuela? Country in the Middle East? Pick one. We're spending $1.24 billion on clean coal just ourselves in the province of Saskatchewan with only 1 million people. Alberta is provincially spending billions of dollars, or prepared to spend billions of dollars to try to reduce the CO2 footprint on oil sands development. Canada is investing, companies are investing. We do need to do more, but ours is not a negative story. We have a good story to tell, especially considering that when you buy oil from Canada, you buy oil from a lover of liberty and a respecter of human rights. You buy oil from a country that lets women drive cars and affords all of its citizens the rights you'd want any country you're dealing with to afford. We need to do a better job of getting out that message, and that's a bit of a digression for me, but I think if we're going to continue to grow in Saskatchewan and to grow in Western Canada, we need to be vigilant about these issues. We need to be taking care of the environment, yes, and then we need to get our message out so people know just who they're dealing with when they deal with Western Canada, when we deal with Canada. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, why we're a bit bullish for the mid and the long term in the province of Saskatchewan, because as long as the world wants food security and energy security, and as long as we can pay off the debt, set some cash aside when times are good, as long as we can build into innovation into the economy and invest in infrastructure, I do like our chances for sustaining the Saskatchewan advantage, for keeping things going. And it's important that we do. Let me just close with this. It's a story from 1939 when our province was just 35 years old. And it features a visit of the very first visit by a reigning monarch to Canada and King and Queen. King George and Queen Elizabeth came across Canada in 1939. The royal train traveled down the CN line, Canadian National Line, and it reached the community of Melville, Saskatchewan on the 3rd of June. Melville, Saskatchewan at the time was about 4,000 people. This was one of the last Western stops on the tour. Farm families came from 200 miles away to see the King and the Queen. Town shut down so people could go and enjoy the afternoon. The train was late. It pulled in after 10 p.m. And one of our historians who's researched this particular event says the roar of the crowd was deafening and everyone was pretty excited, but it was 10 at night, and so though the spotlight was shining on the royal couple on the platform of the train, they really didn't know about the crowd that was out there, and so the Queen asked that they would turn the spotlight out onto the crowd, and they did, and there were 60,000 people there. But the province was only 35 years old, so many of them would have been first-generation Saskatchewan people. They would have come from here. They would have come from Europe and the rest. They would have come from Ireland, where we're going to go, by the way, tomorrow on a job fair to try to recruit people in you to come back to the province and help us deal with the labor shortage. What we're going to do in the government of Saskatchewan is shine the light on what we have to offer in the province, to address areas where we need to improve. but to get our message out that I don't think there's a better place in the world right now to invest. I'm, of course, a little bit biased, but I don't think there's a better place in the world for investment, for people to consider moving. And I just want to say to those in this room who are already vested in Saskatchewan, first and foremost, thank you for your investment. And for those who are thinking about it, do that. Remember that our provincial motto is from many people's strength. It's how the province was built over 100 years ago, and it's how we are reestablishing the Saskatchewan advantage. It's how it will be built anew. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. We appreciate this opportunity to tell our story.